This episode discusses detail of murder, rape, and kidnapping. If you are particularly sensitive, avoid this episode and join us next week.
Welcome back to Murder in the Black. It is your host, Steph. Let's go ahead and get this out the way, right? Happy New Year, because I'm tired of people saying it to me. Like, we 9 days into the new year. You can't say that. But I have to say that to y'all because we haven't talked. So I hope your new year thus far is going well. We're not in the thick of it, as they say, just yet. But we are kicking off season 8. Now, MD and I both had a family emergency this week, which derailed our schedule for recording. And because of that, I'm here by myself. But everything is good. God is good. And we just wanted to keep going with the train of season 8. We did not want to do a rebroadcast. We wanted to hit y'all with a new case for the new year. But before we get into our true crime case for today, I want to remind you that we do have giveaway winners that we announced on our socials. So if by any chance you don't follow us on IG or Facebook, head on over there if you participated in the giveaway, see if your name is on the list, and if it is, you have until January 15th to get back in contact with us. Give us your email information so we can send you over that gift card, right? So we just want to let you guys know that it's still active. You can still capitalize on your winnings, and just to send us a quick message via DM or email. Let's go ahead and get into our true crime case for today. Grab your coffee if it's the morning, your lemonade if it's the afternoon, but most certainly grab your wine if it's the evening. Either way, let's get into it. I've entitled our case, Voices of the Missing. Kelly Jean Harris was born on April 29th, 1971, and spent her formative years living with her father in Pasadena, Maryland. In 1984, Kelly was 13 years old, and like many of us, she had a trip planned for that summer. She went down to Jackson, Michigan to enjoy with her mother and her stepfather and younger sister. The summer break was anticipated to be a delightful experience, filled with joys of reconnecting with her mother and her family and just exploring the new surroundings of Jackson, Michigan. Now, if you're not familiar with Jackson, as I was not until I discovered this case, the closest city to Jackson, Michigan is Lansing. However, although she was excited about this summer break, she also was more excited about what happened after. She was scheduled to go and move to California with her great aunt, where she would be attending school. And this was a transition for her, but she was full of excitement as she knew it would be a big journey because she would be making new friends, attending a new school in a new state. Many people described Kelly as an ordinary yet vibrant girl. She was an around-the-way girl in the best way possible. She enjoyed various outdoors activities like riding her bike and really anything that was outside. Like most kids, they love exploring the outdoors. She cherished moments with her younger sister, forming a close bond that truly just defined her childhood at that time. Her mother often noted that Kelly was a feisty child with a strong personality that shone through her interactions and interests. Kelly relished the simple pleasures of life, such as, get this, she drank Tang. It was her favorite drink. Y'all remember Tang? And she loved listening and watching Michael Jackson, her idol, on TV. And in 1984, MJ was in his prime. But what I really want you to keep a hold of as I tell you this story is that Kelly's story is a typical story. It's intertwined with the joy and excitement of new beginnings and finding her own true adventurous spirit and really fulfilling the promise and potential that almost every child has as they navigate the adventures of growing up. In my research on the case of Kelly Harris, I encountered August 10th and August 11th. However, to clarify and maintain consistency throughout this story, I will align with Kelly's mother's account, which is August 11th, 1984. This date marks the last time anyone would see Kelly alive. On that fateful morning, Carol Hugo woke up, prepared herself for work, and before leaving, instructed her daughter, Kelly, to put her bicycle in the backyard. Kelly's bike had been left in the front yard, which, kids do. It's something that we've all been told a time or two when we leave something not in its place. They exchanged pleasantries, and the last words they shared became etched in Carol's memory. Kelly said, "I love you, Mom. Have a good day." Afterwards, Carol's husband, Leonard Hugo, took her to work, not knowing that this would be the last time that she would see her beautiful daughter. When Carol returned home around 2 p.m., she discovered that Kelly was missing, prompting her immediate panic and concern. The first place that Carol went was to her mother's house. She was distraught, crying, and panicked. Leonard Hugo, Kelly's stepfather, was the last individuals known to have seen her. He reported her missing after she failed to come home at the expected time. A search ensued when they made the police aware of her absence, but the turning point came the following day when Kelly's bicycle was discovered at the entrance of Ella Sharp Park. Now, I want to make it clear that I've came on many discrepancies in this case, and so I want to present both. Some people have said that Ella Sharp Park, in distance to where she was staying at her mother and stepfather's house, is a distance away. It's like 3 miles away. But then I also found that it's only 5 minutes away from the Hugo household. So do with that as you will, but I want to present both accounts. In addition, eyewitness reports suggested that Kelly purchased a ticket for a bus ride from Jackson to Detroit, Michigan. There were claims from another witness who indicated seeing her board the bus, leading investigators to initially suspect that this wasn't a kidnapping, that perhaps it was a runaway situation. This assumption was fueled by the fact that in the days leading up to her disappearance, Kelly had expressed frustration about not being allowed to go to the county fair that was in town. And maybe that's why she decided to run away. Maybe she was still frustrated by her mother telling her she couldn't go at that time. So investigators continued to follow up on eyewitness accounts. They canvassed the area for additional leads, and they began to reassess their initial theory that this was a runaway. It became increasingly evident that Kelly's disappearance was not a simple case of running away. Rather, it pointed toward the more alarming possibility of kidnapping or abduction. Among the primary suspects in this case was, you guessed it, Leonard Hugo himself. He was the last one to see her, and he was the person who ended up reporting her missing. Now, observations from the investigators noted his apparent lack of emotion when he was retelling what happened the day that Kelly disappeared. This raised red flags, but furthermore, Carol had indicated that the relationship between Leonard and Kelly during her stay there for summer break was fraught with tension and conflict. But this wasn't enough, right? Yeah, he's not showing any emotion, he seems disconnected, and they may have had a couple of arguments, but does this make him guilty? Truly, it was the revelation of Leonard's criminal background that heightened suspicions against him. And it really prompted the investigators to dig deeper in his background. Leonard Hugo had a deeply troubling past that would contribute to the suspicions surrounding him in the investigation of Kelly Harris. According to his mother, Leonard had been in and out of mental health facilities since the age of 13, and this indicated long-standing psychological issues that raised serious concerns about his stability and his behavior. One particular incident that occurred in July of 1969 was very alarming. Leonard was 18 years old, One fateful night, the family of Cindy Hayward, a 12-year-old young girl, awaited her return home, but she never arrived. Unknown to her loved ones, Cindy's path was intersecting with that of Leonard Hugo, leading her into a harrowing experience. As she walked home that night, Leonard approached her in his car. He brandished his gun, forcing her at gunpoint to enter the vehicle. Cindy complied, and I'm sure she was rooted in terror and didn't know what was going to happen. She entered into her own nightmare. What followed was a nightmarish 4-day ordeal during which Leonard and Cindy traveled from Fremont to Marquette. During this time, Cindy endured immense fear and uncertainty, unsure if she would ever see her family again. Law enforcement had been alerted to the case of a missing girl and a suspect in a truck, and upon receiving information that she might be in the Marquette area, they began to take action. The police successfully located Leonard and engaged him in a high-speed pursuit. The chase culminated in a dramatic crash into a sand pile, allowing law enforcement to apprehend Leonard and secure Cindy's safety. Following the incident, Cindy was reunited with her family, grateful to have escaped a potentially lethal situation, yet left traumatized by the experience. Many podcasters, and I believe just people of the media, tend to overlook the aspect that I wish to discuss with you guys today, which is they try to wrap up the narrative of people who have been kidnapped with this nice, neat resolution, which is they were returned to their families safely. And although that is factual, we cannot stop there. We have to bring awareness to the complexities and trauma that children specifically, because that's what we're talking about, go through as a result of kidnapping. I'm saying only kidnapping here, but she might also have been sexually assaulted during the 4 days that she spent with Leonard. That adds more layers to the complexities of her being returned home to a life that she once knew and having to adapt a new life post-survival. And you guys know I love to do like a couple of fast facts with you guys. So I'm going to give you 3 psychological effects that children go through after going through a traumatic experience like kidnapping and or sexual assault. Children who endure kidnapping may frequently experience enduring psychological effects like PTSD, anxiety, and depression. Many victims have reported symptoms such as nightmares, flashbacks, and heightened levels of fear related to their traumatic event. Number 2, kidnapping can severely disrupt a child's sense of safety and trust in the world around them. Post-abduction, many children exhibit behavior changes such as increased paranoia, withdrawal from social interactions, and difficulties in forming new relationships. Thirdly and lastly, following a kidnapping, children may face cognitive difficulties, including impaired memory and concentration confusion, or episodes of denial about the kidnapping itself. The emotional and physical scars resulting from kidnapping and sexual assault are often prolonged and profound. It is crucial not only to raise awareness about the crime of kidnapping itself, but to highlight that it doesn't end when the child or person is safely brought home. It is just beginning. As always, I will include relevant sources and resources at the end of this episode to assist with anyone who may be experiencing such trauma or who knows someone navigating the difficult journey of recovery from this trauma. Let's get back to our story. Not much is known about the after effects of Leonard being captured and arrested after the kidnapping of Cindy Hayward, so I'll share with you the information I discovered via Escanaba Daily News, which has an archived article. An 18-year-old former mental patient, Leonard V. Hugo of Fremont, pleaded guilty Wednesday to one of 2 charges stemming from the alleged July 19th abduction of a 12-year-old Fremont girl. Hugo pled guilty in circuit court to a charge of concealing the child from its parents and waived examination on a charge of kidnapping. The youth was jailed pending a pre-sentencing investigation on his guilty plea. This was all the information I was able to find about Leonard and the case of Cindy Hayward. I don't know if it was because he was 18, maybe he was able to get his record sealed after some time, or maybe his mental state has something to do with why we're not able to see public records of what happened in that case as far as sentencing is concerned, but it's not public record. What we do know is that this is what investigators looked at when they considered him as a primary suspect. We know that he had a criminal background that involved minors. And so for that reason alone, he was their primary suspect, but they had no evidence to hang their hat on the fact that he did something or was responsible in any way in the disappearance of Kelly Jean Harris. Now, after the incident of 1969, not much is known about his whereabouts and what he was doing specifically during that gap. But what we do know is that he married Carol Hugo and resided in Jackson, Michigan with her. And after Kelly's initial disappearance, they continued their marriage. And time went on, and no new leads emerged in Kelly's case. And it went cold. But during the passage of time, Carol Hugo began to be suspicious of Leonard. She felt like he knew more than what he was telling her. And she decided to ask him a very poignant question. She asked him, and I quote, "I looked Len straight in the face and asked, 'What did you do to her?' Leonard's reaction was notably unsettling. He simply bent down to tie his shoe, then hurriedly left the house, driving away like a bat out of hell." Now, this encounter marked Carol's last interaction with Leonard before their separation, which ended with a finalized divorce in 1994. A year prior to the finalized divorce between Leonard and Carol, Leonard was not done terrorizing people. He moved to Mechanicsburg, Florida, and he stopped by a coworker's home. His coworker wasn't there, and so he asked his coworker's girlfriend could he use the bathroom. She obliged. Her 5-year-old daughter was present. After he used the restroom, Leonard comes out brandishing a gun, threatening the woman and her child. In an effort to save her and her daughter's life, she cooperates, and he restrains both with duct tape. He then rapes this young woman 4 times, and he also forces her child to perform sexual acts on her mother as well as Leonard. After hours of intense horror and struggle, he left the home in her truck, and eventually he was captured in Flagstaff, Arizona. In December of 1993, he pled guilty to burglary, 4 counts of sexual battery, 2 counts of attempted sexual battery on a child under 12, and 2 counts of grand theft, and he was sentenced to 50 years in prison. During Leonard's incarceration, he was approached by the Jackson, Michigan Cold Case Department in 2004, but it wasn't until 2006 that he was ready to cooperate with authorities and speak about the disappearance of Kelly. According to Mel Hartman, who was a part of the Jackson County Prosecutor's Office, on the day of Kelly's disappearance, he coaxed Kelly to get in the car with him by telling her that he was going to take her to the county fair. But we know he had a more sinister plan. He took her to his place of employment, which was St. John's School. He then raped her. After he claimed he put her in his trunk, he then drove out to an area near Jackson Community College and stabbed her to death and buried her in a shallow grave. It has been reported through various media sources that there is blood evidence that substantiates his claims, but this information has not been revealed to the general public. Hugo did get clearance from the governor of Florida to go back to Michigan. They went to the spot where he claimed he buried Kelly. However, investigators believe that the place where he buried her was a shallow grave and that more than likely animals got to her remains. After Leonard serves his sentence in Florida, if he lives that long, because he's very old, he will be released in 2035 and be brought back to Michigan to face charges for the murder and rape of Kelly Jean Harris. On the 25th anniversary of her daughter's disappearance, Carol Hugo participated in an emotional interview with Michigan Live, a local news outlet. During this poignant occasion, she visited the Fallen Victims of Homicide. It's a memorial there in Jackson. She, in a heartfelt tribute, wore the color purple. It was Kelly's favorite. She reflected on the precious memories that she shared with Kelly during her very brief life. As Carol sat in contemplation at the memorial, she allowed herself to reminisce about the joyful moments that they experienced together. Each memory served as a reminder of the bond they forged, not only as mother and child, but also as friends. She remarked in this interview that if Kelly had lived, more than likely she would have become a doctor and she would have had a ton of kids. This is the story of Kelly Jean Harris. Takeaway. The case of Kelly Jean Harris is a sobering reminder for myself of just the harsh realities surrounding child violence, murder, abduction, and kidnappings. It's an incredibly complex and sensitive subject, which is why I often give warnings at the top of our episodes, because it can make you angry, it can make you sad. It's just overall a hurtful reality that we have to face when discussing this topic. This is a daunting task. Even for me as a podcaster, it's very hard to talk about this particular issue in the true crime space. And also, I'm a mother. I'm a human. It's just incredibly difficult. But I feel that it's crucial for us to talk about these stories and to bring them up more and more and more in our communities, because this is a problem that persists within our community. So if we bring it up, if we tell these stories, we can foster a culture of vigilance and support aimed at protecting the most vulnerable members of society, children. And preparing to address Kelly's case with you guys this week, I had an opportunity to talk to my parents, and I told them the case, and my Anansi the Spider voice told them all the intricacies and several of the things that really upset me about this case. And during our conversation, my mother offered a very insightful response that has stayed on my mind since she said it. She said this, that these stories about children missing, murdered, abused, must be told repeatedly, not only to honor the victims, but also to cultivate a greater understanding of how to effectively advocate for our children. By highlighting the warning signs of potential dangers, we can commit ourselves to improving the environments in which our children grow and thrive. So it's imperative that we as adults, the older ones, the elders of the community, take an active role in safeguarding our youth. This includes not only believing our children when they tell us things or when they show us behaviors that are contrary to how they usually act, but it also is acknowledging the red flags that other adults present and believing those red flags as well. We can create together a collective effort to stay informed, engaged, and responsive to the needs of our children. That's my takeaway for the week. Let me know what you guys think. I have one question for you guys. Do you think that the Jackson, Michigan police, upon finding out about Leonard's troubled background in 1969, do you think that they told Carol about that? And that's what drove her to be suspicious about Leonard? I don't know, because that information is not there, and a reporter has never asked her why she was suspicious of his behavior. The only thing Carol said is that she grew suspicious over time. My second question is, do you believe that Leonard had been committing these types of crimes against children throughout his entire life? And those 3 that I just highlighted for you was the ones that got him caught up. Because, I mean, he probably could have gone his entire existence without ever revealing anything about Kelly and got away with it. And those other 2 incidents were really big. But I think that more than likely he had been committing crimes against children for years. And those 2 big crimes he couldn't get away with. I'm interested to know your response to those questions. You can answer one, you can answer both. And the way to answer that on this episode is to answer on Spotify. Otherwise, you can put it in our Instagram post. I want to remind all of you who are giveaway winners to hit me up by January 15th. Make sure you rate, leave us a 5-star review if you care, and share and care this episode with friends and family. Until next time, this is Murder in the Black.